This is not a toy. This is not a go-kart. It is a tool to help you at work.
You have no idea how much power is behind you when you're driving this.
The number one priority is to be aware of your surroundings.
Two common misconceptions are that it's very easy or it's very difficult.
They're powerful, they can pick up a lot of things, making it a lot easier, a lot more efficient to move objects.
A forklift is not like an automobile. It's not like anything you've driven before.
Do you ever stop to think about what an amazing machine a forklift is? Well, just imagine how much more work would be involved if we didn't have them. Forklifts, lift trucks, powered industrial trucks, whatever you choose to call them, they're among the most common types of equipment in industry and construction. These machines have become essential by making it easier to move heavier materials. They come in many classes and types, from electric to LP gas, to gasoline-powered, to diesel-powered. Each type is designed for a particular job and a particular operating environment. Each one is a powerful tool that allows one person to precisely lift and place large, heavy loads with very little physical effort. Never use a forklift unless you're trained and authorized by your employer to do so. If you have been trained and authorized, then be sure to follow the safety rules and procedures. We're going to review some basic rules that every forklift operator needs to know. Driving a forklift is different than driving a car. In a car or truck, the front wheels steer the vehicle. A forklift, of course, has the steering wheels in the rear. The rear end of the forklift swings in a circle around the front wheels that support most of the load. Make sure there's room for the rear end to swing out when making turns. And when moving a load in reverse, don't forget to allow room for the load to swing too. Because they steer from the rear, forklifts can turn a much tighter circle than a car. Another difference is that most forklifts are a lot heavier than a car because they have counterweights mounted at the rear to balance the weight of the load.
With all of that weight moving, you can't stop fast like a car. You can't steer fast like a car.
When we have a load, we typically drive backwards, which means you're turning over your shoulder all the time while you're driving.
The combination of rear steering and heavy weight makes it difficult to stop a forklift quickly or swerve and still maintain control. Even without a load, a forklift can tip over, so it's important not to drive fast or round corners too quickly. Another major difference between a forklift and a car is stability. Almost all counterbalanced powered industrial trucks have a 3-point suspension system. That is, the vehicle is supported at 3 points. This is true even if the vehicle has 4 wheels. The truck's steer axle is attached to the truck by a pivot pin at the axle center. When the points are connected with imaginary lines, this 3-point support forms a triangle called the stability triangle. A vertical line extending from the center of gravity of the vehicle load combination must stay inside the stability triangle to prevent the forklift from tipping. Once you understand the characteristics of the forklift, you're almost ready to go. But first, it's always a good idea to review the operator's manual. You should also read and understand the warning labels, capacity plate information, and other instructions on the forklift.
In training, I stress what we call a 3-point mount. 2 hands firmly on the cage of the forklift, 1 foot on the floorboard, and swinging yourself onto the seat of the forklift.
To get on and off a forklift, always face the unit and use 3 points of contact at all times. Never jump on or off. If the forklift has a seat belt or lap bar, you're required to use it. In case of a tip over, the seat belt will keep you inside the protective frame.
The seat belt use is required by OSHA, and the primary purpose of the seat belt is to keep you from being tempted to jump free and clear when the units start to tip over.
Never attempt to jump off the forklift.
Never jump off. Never attempt to jump off.
No, never jump out because you don't know where the tow motor is going to go. You don't know where what you're carrying is going to go.
Never try to jump off during a tip over. You might be pinned under the forklift or the load.
You never want to lean towards your fall. You should hold onto the steering wheel, make sure you're stable, and lean away from your falling direction.
The forklift must be checked for defects each day. Even if you operate safely by following all the rules, a defect can lead to a serious incident. Always follow the inspection procedures listed in the manual for your particular machine. If there is no checklist in the manual, you can use one like this. In general, here's what you should inspect before operating your forklift.
Well, during the pre-operations inspection, you should look at the tires, the quality of the tires, no cuts, no strips. You should look at the mast, you should look at the hydraulic lines, make sure there are no leaks. Look underneath the truck to make sure there are no leaks. Check your seat belt, check your horn.
Start with a walk around. Check the condition of the tires. If they're pneumatic tires, check for correct air pressure. Also, look for excessive wear. A tire with low pressure or a tire failure can cause a forklift to tip when a load is raised. Inspect hoses, belts, and cables for cracks or other signs of excessive wear. Look for deformities or cracks in the forks, backrest, mast, overhead guard, and check fluid levels. Look for signs of wear, loose connections, and leaks. Is there a lot of oil or other material that could catch fire? Can you read the load capacity plate? We'll talk more about load capacity later. To continue your inspection, climb into the vehicle using 3 points of contact. If there's a seat belt, is it working properly and is it accessible? Check any safety equipment to make sure it's working properly. Start the machine only from the operator's position. Never start it while standing alongside or from any other position. Check all gauges, warning lights, and battery or fuel levels. Get familiar with the controls. Do all controls such as lift, lower, and tilt work smoothly? And are they clearly labeled? Is the horn working? You'll need to sound the horn at intersections and wherever vision is obstructed. If you're going to work at night or in dark locations, make sure the lights work. Depress the brake pedal. Will the brakes stop the forklift smoothly and reliably? Sudden stops can cause tipping. Does the parking brake work? Check the steering. A lot of play or hard steering will reduce your control. After moving the forklift a few feet, check the floor to make sure nothing is leaking. Leaks could cause slipping hazards or indicate a hydraulic problem. Do sparks or flames come out of the exhaust system? Listen for any unusual sounds or noises. If you find anything wrong during your inspection, don't operate the forklift until it's been repaired. OSHA does not require documentation of a daily inspection. Still, it's a good idea to have a checklist to make sure you don't miss any inspection steps. Also, inspection checklists are often saved as part of the maintenance record. Let's talk about good, safe practices all forklift operators should follow when they travel from one location to another.
The lower the load is to the ground, the more stable you are. Once, obviously, as you get higher, you're going to lose a little stability, especially when you're turning. So you want to make sure you want to keep your load nice and low.
Always travel with the forks and the load at the lowest safe height. You may have to raise them slightly if you encounter bumps or seams in the floor. Indoor floors are usually smooth, so the forks should be only about 2 to 4 inches off the floor.
Raising or lowering your load while you're moving causes you to have a non-constant center of gravity, and it's less predictable.
And of course, you should never engage in stunt driving or horseplay. Never exceed the authorized plant speed limit, and go slow enough to be able to stop safely at any time. Loose objects, bumps, or depressions can cause you to lose control of steering, bring you to a sudden stop, and cause the load to tip. Avoid wet, oily, or icy surfaces. Clean them up as soon as possible. Keep all parts of your body inside the forklift frame. A hand or foot anywhere outside the protection cage can easily get pinched or crushed. Even without a load, your visibility is restricted. Always look in the direction of travel and keep a clear view of the travel path. Pedestrians always have the right of way. Keep an eye out for them. Watch those convex mirrors if you have them. Sound the horn at blind intersections and proceed slowly. Travel in reverse if the load blocks your view. Never give anyone a ride on your forklift unless the unit is designed for passengers. Keep a distance of at least 3 forklift lengths between you and any forklift traveling in front of or behind you. Don't pass a forklift that's traveling in the same direction if you're at a blind spot, intersection, or other dangerous location. It's just safest never to pass. Never drive a forklift up to anyone in front of a bench, wall, or other fixed object. If your forklift were to lurch forward, the person may get trapped and crushed against the object.
You never want to come head-on with a pedestrian, especially if there's something behind them, like a bench or fixed object or something like that. Should your brakes go out or whatever, you're going to be pinning that person.
The right way is to approach parallel to the person and the fixed object, not directly towards them. Don't allow anyone to walk or stand under the elevated forks, even if the forks are not carrying a load. Many loads are so tall that they obscure your line of sight. The preferred way is to split the load and carry it on 2 separate pallets. If you can't split a tall load that obscures your view, you must either drive in reverse, use a spotter, or both. Spotters must be able to respond to danger quickly and communicate with the driver. Make sure you and your spotter use the same hand signals. Be courteous to your coworkers and help protect their safety. Never park a forklift near walkways, stairways, or in front of a fire exit. When you park, make sure you lower the forks so they don't create a tripping hazard. If you leave a forklift unattended, lower the forks to the ground. Set the controls to neutral, set the parking brake, and turn off the power. It's also a good idea to take the key with you. And if the forklift is on an incline, chock the wheels.
The thing that I have to repeat the most is to set the emergency brake and put the vehicle in neutral.
If you leave a forklift but stay within 25 feet and in sight of the truck, you must lower the forks to the ground, set the controls to neutral, and set the brake. And by the way, even if you remain within 25 feet, to be extra safe, you should shut it off.
It's not just a matter of turning the engine off, though. You should turn the gas off also. And if you're going to be taking a break in the break room, you should disconnect the electrical connection when you do that also.
Before you pick up a load, make sure the load does not exceed the capacity of the forklift. The capacity plate tells you the maximum load that's safe to lift, the maximum height for lifting, and how far the load center is in front of the forks. Make sure you know exactly what you'll be lifting. There's a big difference between a light load and a heavy off-center load. It's a good idea to have the load securely attached to the pallet, either by banding or stretch wrapping. If you're handling a load that has an unusual shape, be aware of any special stacking requirements before you pick it up.
Be aware of how much your tow motor can lift and knowing how much it is that you're lifting.
It's very important for them to know how much they're lifting, how high they're lifting, and what the center of gravity is on everything that they do pick up.
If you're going to raise the load, check for overhead obstructions such as lights, pipes, or sprinkler systems. The forks should be centered under the load to evenly distribute the weight. Next, drop the forks to the floor and slowly position them under the load, driving forward until the load is resting against the backrest. Don't raise or lower the forks unless the lift truck is stopped.
If you have to raise or lower the tow motor, the clamps, or the forks, make sure you do it when you're in a stop position, because that way you're always aware of what's going on and you're not worrying about, well, is there something behind me? How is my load doing when I'm raising it or dropping it?
If the load is unstable, you may want to lift first and then carefully tilt it back so the load stays tight against the backrest. If it's a stable load and secure on the pallet, tilt first and then lift. If you're lifting the load from a rack, back out slowly until you clear the rack and other obstacles. Then lower the load to the safe traveling height, about 2 to 4 inches off the floor. Never travel with the load raised. Check the destination before you place the load. Is it flat and stable, or will the load tilt or lean? Never place heavy loads on top of light loads. If you're placing loads into a rack or storage loft, be sure the load will be safely supported. If rack legs or support members are bent or disconnected, wait until the damaged component has been replaced before loading. Also, make sure the decking in the rack is in good condition. If you're stacking, the bottom pallets must be in good condition and capable of supporting the additional load. To place the load, stop in front of the destination. Slowly raise the load to the required height. Whenever the load is raised, you must stay on the forklift and at the controls. Position the load, slowly drive forward. Lower the load and place it square and straight. Once it settles, look for pedestrians or obstacles in your path, and then back up slowly. Don't turn the forklift or change the fork height until you're certain that the forks are clear of the pallet. Forklifts are often driven into trucks, trailers, or railroad cars. To make sure there are no surprises, walk in and inspect the trailer or rail car. It should be well lit when you load or unload. Check the floor for trash, loose objects, and obstructions, holes or weak floors, poor lighting, and low overhead clearance. If it looks unsafe, don't drive in. When using a dock plate to bridge the gap between the dock and trailer, make sure it's designed for the combined weight of the load, the lifting device, and the person moving the load. Inspect the dock plate every day, checking for cracks, bends, and other signs of failure. If you position a portable dock plate, there must be at least 8 inches of overlap on each end. Make sure it's secure before driving or walking over it. Portable dock plates usually have a vertical divider to prevent slipping. Make sure the truck or trailer is properly secured and the engine is shut off before you load or unload. If you don't have a restraining system with indicator lights, post signs warning not to move the vehicle. Wheel chocks must be in place in front of the rear wheels. Another way to secure a trailer is to use a vehicle restraint system mounted to the dock that clamps onto the trailer's rear impact guard. This system will signal when the restraint is engaged or if there's a problem. At some loading docks, the pavement slopes downhill toward the loading dock. This is not a substitute for wheel chocks or other restraint systems. Keep in mind that the repeated up and down trailer movement caused by loading or unloading activity may loosen the wheel chocks, and the trailer may still slowly creep or walk away from the dock. If the dock has a mechanical restraining system, use it. Another kind of restraint latches onto the rear wheels of the truck or trailer. These are useful when the trailer does not have an impact guard or the guard is damaged. Sometimes a trailer is left at a loading dock without the tractor attached. Trailer creep is more of a problem on spotted trailers, so use of a restraining device is especially important here. If the tractor is not attached, don't rely on the trailer's landing gear alone. Use trailer jacks to prevent the trailer from upending or collapsing when a forklift drives to the front of the trailer. Don't operate forklifts inside vehicles for long periods without proper ventilation. Carbon monoxide or other hazardous emissions may build up. Ramps or inclines present special problems for forklifts. If you drive with a load on an incline greater than 5%, keep the load on the uphill side. Otherwise, there may be no weight on the wheels that steer, and you may lose control. It could also cause the load to fall off or cause the forklift to tip. During your shift, you may have to refuel, recharge, or change a battery. This should be done only in a designated area and only by individuals who have been trained in proper safe procedures. No one should ever smoke in this area. Before you refuel or recharge an electric, gasoline, or diesel-powered forklift, first, turn off the forklift. Second, put on the proper personal protective equipment. This may include eye protection, gloves, and an apron. Third, note where the eye wash station is and the shower or other emergency equipment such as spill cleanup supplies. If you're changing the battery on an electric forklift, position the forklift in the changing area and set the brake. Make sure the battery is securely attached to the hoist before lifting it. Stand clear as the battery is moved in and out of position. When you charge a battery, make sure the ventilation system is working properly. If the battery is being charged on the forklift, uncover the battery compartment to prevent heat or hydrogen gas buildup. The battery charger must be turned off before connecting it to the battery. Make sure metal objects don't contact the battery terminals. If you're diluting concentrated sulfuric acid with water, always add acid to the water, not water to the acid. Otherwise, it could cause a violent reaction or explosion. However, if you need to add water to top off a battery, you can do so safely when the proper precautions are taken, because the acid in a forklift battery is already diluted. When adding fluid to the battery, wear safety goggles. A face shield can also be worn to protect against electrolyte splash or spray. If your forklift is powered by liquid petroleum gas or LPG, you refuel by changing cylinders. Wear protective gloves because contact with liquid propane can cause freeze burn. Before you begin, close the fuel line valve on the cylinder. But in this case, keep the engine running until it stops. This will empty the connection hose. Shut off the ignition. Disconnect the hose and the holding straps and remove the empty cylinder. Never use metal tools to change a cylinder. One small spark could cause a fire or explosion. Replace the empty cylinder with a full one in the proper position. The locating pin should engage the hole in the cylinder handle so that the relief valve is straight up in the 12 o'clock position. Connect the holding straps. Tighten the connecting nut. Check the hose to make sure it's tight. Slowly open the valve on the cylinder part way and check for leaks. Smell, listen, and look. You can also use a solution of soap and water. Never use matches or a flame. If the valve leaks, tighten the nut and continue. If it still leaks, change the cylinder. And if it still leaks after that, have the hose changed or repaired. Once there are no leaks, slowly open the valve all the way. Secure the cylinder, start the engine, and resume operation. When fueling a gasoline or diesel forklift, make sure you have the proper fuel. Always turn the engine off and set the parking brake. Don't overfill the tank. Replace the fuel cap and clean up any spilled fuel before starting the engine. Anytime you're recharging or changing batteries, it's essential that you be absolutely certain of the safest way to do it. If you have any doubt or questions, ask your supervisor. If you're using a forklift outdoors or at a construction site, you're going to encounter rough, uneven terrain. Pneumatic tires are used on these forklifts because they help smooth out the bumps and make the unit more stable. Walk-along units, such as motorized hand trucks or pallet trucks, should always be operated no faster than a normal walking pace. When you enter an elevator or other confined area, always put the load end forward. If you use a high lift unit, always wear proper fall protection equipment and use a safety platform. An overhead guard must be in place to protect you from falling objects or other overhead obstructions. Never travel with the operator or the load in a raised position. If you're using a two-person unit, you must maintain communication at all times between the operator and the person in the lift. OSHA regulations require that a forklift be checked for defects the first time it's placed in service and every day that the forklift is used. If the forklift is used continuously, then it must be checked after each shift. In addition, the forklift owner's manual will have routine checks and preventive maintenance tasks that must be done by a skilled maintenance person to keep the forklift in safe operating condition. Careful records should be kept of this maintenance as well as any repair work. Any modifications or additions that affect the safe operation and capacity, such as additional counterweights or lifting attachments, must be approved in writing by the manufacturer. These changes must also be printed on the load capacity plate and in the operating instructions. If you're using a front-end attachment, The capacity plate must identify the attachment and list the approximate combined weight of the truck and attachment at maximum elevation with a centered load. A forklift is a powerful tool when used by a well-trained operator. It helps get the work done and can reduce the risk of injury by eliminating the need to manually lift and carry loads. However, forklifts can be dangerous if they're not properly operated and maintained. That's why it's so important to always know what the safety rules are and follow them. Never operate a forklift unless you have completed formal instruction, hands-on training, and periodic evaluation as required by OSHA standards. Your employer, your coworkers, and your family want you to safely finish every shift. Always be aware of the dangers. Be smart and be safe.